This episode is brought to you by the wonderful land of Twitter. On October 22nd, Telegraph Live published that there is a birth rate crisis gripping the West. With increasing numbers of women rejecting motherhood, governments are left scrambling to try and encourage a baby boom. Under that, I left a comment that reads, "It's not just necessarily women rejecting motherhood. I hear some men are not interested in fatherhood as well. It is a mutual thing to not want kids, it seems." Occasionally, I leave a comment on something that ends up blowing up for whatever reason, and this was one of them, and I had the feeling that this had the potential of being one of those, so I kind of prepared myself, and I said, okay, if it covers good info, I'm going to make a video about it. Well, some of the replies that I got were pretty nice. There's, of course, that one idiot who's going to be like, the point flew over your head. And what we do is we ignore that clown. Overall, I'm pretty satisfied with the way this conversation went because it was going back and forth. So, of course, my mentions were like blowing up. I always die a little when my likes exceed over 100 for some reason. The fact that some people acknowledge that, it's like, we need to talk. Anyway, let's dive into it. Someone said something that I particularly liked, and I was going to leave this as my last comment. Twitter threads on a phone can get a little tricky. He says, or she says, "There is no real upside to having kids. Everyone I know who has them does nothing but complain about them, and the world is entering a global ecological disaster due to overpopulation and climate change. There's no real reason to have them." I said to this person, "Oh my god, thank you for mentioning the complaining part. I fucking hate that shit." Sad part is I would become a chronic complainer too, given how unprepared and unqualified I am if I had them. On the note of the overpopulation and stuff, this is the way I look at it. I keep seeing more and more of my surroundings being expanded, being developed. For instance, places where I remember there was greenery, it's been developed to have housing, which is weird because some of those houses end up being empty because nobody can afford them. And then the people who can afford them just want them as vacation homes. With the number of people who we have living out there in the streets, I keep thinking that there should be a limit on how many properties you should have. I don't think you should really have more than one, but if you have two, I think that should be the limit. But when I think about it, if everybody decided to do that, all of us who are adults having two properties simultaneously, that would be a little excessive. I can tell you that I do not need to have two houses. I also keep thinking about how we keep trying to move upward, like say develop housing in which we're in the same building but multiple floors. Why do I have to share my space with other people like that? Something about that, it just feels cluttered and crowded, and I know I would not be able to handle living in a situation that's more than 2 stories tall. I can tell you that much. Because we have so many people out there, I understand why realistically we don't have enough space to keep moving horizontally, so I guess we have to keep moving vertically now. Either way, I still believe it's a disaster still. So there was that comment, and then another discussion that I saw that was compelling was, it's loading up for me. Someone responded to that person. This is actually the clown who I said says or thinks that the point flew over my head. This person says, "Someone to care for you in your old age, ... Someone replied to him saying, "Haha, you're expecting us to live that long? Cute." And then I replied to the person who said that by saying, "You know what? Everybody I know around my age simply have serious doubts about making it to 40. It's like we are living with 1700s life expectancy." Another wave of comments that I saw that fed off that guy saying someone to care for was, "That's not a legitimate reason to bring children into this world," which I completely agree with. Because nobody deserves to be conceived as a business opportunity, as a business transaction. The person who originally said that there's no real reason to have them, added to that discussion saying it is not the responsibility of a child to care for a parent in their dotage. Though it is a reason that is rolled out a lot. Then you ask the person who brought it up, how much time do you spend each week actively caring for your parents? Silence usually follows. See, the way I look at it is it's not fair. This is the problem I have with that. The older you are at the time that you have a kid, it's going to be stressful on that kid. Because let's say that you start having a kid in your 40s. That means that by the time your child is in their 20s, you're going to be in your 60s. That stage from 0 up until your 20s, your adolescence and everything, you cannot be a stressed out person. Some individuals are going to face health problems early. Why do you have to condemn your child to have a parent that may not be physically present for them to their full extent? That's one. Also, like mentally, given that you have such a wide age gap, the way that your parent may remember their times being young is going to vastly differ from what your time as a young person is going to look like. Your parents should be resourceful, but their resourcefulness may become limited. Now, this is the other most important thing that I consider that I feel concerns me the most. The worst part to me about this is that aging parents are going to require additional attention in a time when it's not optimal for you to be present for their care because you yourself have a life to build up. If you start having parents requiring care when you're, say, in your early 20s, in your 30s, I believe that is the season that you personally should be focusing on building your wealth, building your home, building your marriage, building your home if you decide to have kids as well. How is that fair? How is it fair for me as the child of the aging parent to have my own family life, which should require my full-time attention, but modern days may not support me being a full-time stay-at-home parent because my husband and I have to be out hunting down money. I'm leaving my child's care and upbringing on the hands of other people. And on top of that, you are expecting me to be involved in the care of my parents. I just really do not see how that's sustainable and even executable, because you cannot just half-ass your way through someone's care or someone's upbringing. That gives poor results. But here you are trying to say that I am expected to be graduated from college, having a good career, good paying job, and having a spouse and children, but somehow you also want to endorse me with the responsibility of caring for my parents? Especially if my parents are divorced or one parent is missing already from the picture. You're supposed to be writing life together. But here you are marrying your kids essentially, or marrying your kids to you. How is that fair? How is that proper? How is that right? This is like a reply back and forth between those two. They look like girls. I don't believe it is a reason to have children, but I see my parents almost daily. I do think that the West's attitude towards old people and families is pretty callous and horrid, to be honest. That I can understand. And I believe I left a reply to that. Let me see if I can find it. The response that I left to that was, I am also concerned about what may have led to those sentiments. I feel like the Western world simply does not support a lifestyle that prepares and develops us for aging in general. We keep getting told in the US that we may not be able to count with Social Security, for example. Maybe that is why the idea of needing to be relied on for care when our own future is on the line. I think we need future management coaching, but I'm not sure what that looks like. It also doesn't help we aren't raised to care for others, children or the elderly. And the reason I say that is because to this day, I still have not held a child in my arms. I never had any younger siblings. The younger sibling I could have had simply did not make it. When it comes to elderly care, I have been away from my grandparents for about 20 years now. So I don't know what their decline looks like to be able to prepare for that. I would have to probably sit down with my father and brother who can say they have a degree of experience at dealing with that and ask them for advice. But at the same time, it's not like they have been entirely present in the picture because they're still pretty young too and they have stuff to take care of. The other person said, I have never had a desire to have children and do not regret my decision. I also know for a fact that my parents are not thinking about who would take care of them when they grew old, when they chose to have me and my siblings. And then the other person said, as I said, I don't think it's a reason to have kids, but I also think people saying we don't owe old people anything and I rarely see my parents and like 500 miles away is really sad too. Some sane people would probably agree everyone deserves a good life and care into old age. It's not about individuals caring for elderly, it's about our society as a community making care possible, but greedy rich run things, so elderly care is crap. And then I replied to that and I said, this is true. It is increasingly difficult to establish a sense of community when people feel forced to pursue career opportunities that may take them away from home. Online communities can be helpful, but physical contributions cannot be replaced. My adolescence was particularly depressing because I was deprived of social activity. And sure, I had access to the internet and I made online friends and whatnot. But I cannot say that I could rely on them in case of an emergency. Like if for whatever reason something would have happened to me at the time, it's not like I could just summon these people and they would show up to give me physical support, whatever that may look like. And that is a pretty scary thing. And unfortunately, I feel like modern times promotes isolation. It took me a long time to personally make a new friend that I could be like, you know what, we're close, we're tight, I can trust you, entering my personal private life. So let's give it a go. So maybe I have passed on opportunities to have those kinds of connections that are meaningful, but I have not been able to develop the skill to be able to establish that. We should not be embarrassed to admit that we have trust issues. I know I have them. To get me to do something or meet up with somebody, it's like incredibly difficult because my personal life and privacy and the things that make me vulnerable are things that I like to guard and protect. But I feel like those concerns were not really concerns that previous generations had to worry about. And then one of the folks said, I do agree community needs to be more of a thing, but I also see it personally as a family matter as well. I would never abandon my parents. Of course, it's different if your parents are legit abusive. That's not what I'm on about. And then having a child for the purpose of expecting them to take care of you when you're old is shitty. That is a completely new commenter. And then another completely new commenter said, well, of course, you're going to notice the pure societal decay and collapse of the family on both sides of the family. It won't just be mothers, of course, fathers as well. The family as a whole is in complete collapse in the West. And this is what I would like for people to do. This is the whole point of why I leave comments like that. I want people to attempt to explore why that is. Why did we get to this point? Me personally, my theory is the moment that both parents began being absent from home is when the problem began. Because let's face it, men are inherently expected to be the providers. But eventually, women also decided that they wanted to be providers. Now we have two providing managers in the home. Did we have experience with that before? Do we know of a style where that dynamic can actually be successful? Me personally, I would hope that if one person in the household works, that suffices. That way someone stays at home and you can maintain the home, because let me tell you, maintaining a home can be pretty time consuming. Even if you spend time regularly upkeeping things, detailing things, and not letting stuff get too out of control, maintaining organization, it can be difficult to manage a home, especially add to that being overwhelmed with the stress of you putting your mind and body to work. So if there are women out there who do not do very well at managing their personal lives, I can completely understand, because me personally, I have a lot of emotional issues that stem from the fact that managing a job with managing a business and managing my home life and personal life, it just becomes overwhelming. There is a lot of things I have had to sacrifice to make those things possible in an efficient way. Some of the things that I end up having to sacrifice may be valuable, and this may be the season that's better suited for those things. And then what ends up happening is, once the season of mine is over, I'm going to resent the fact that that time that I lost was invested in a way that wasn't deemed appropriate for the season that I was in based on my age. How is that fair? How is that proper? So if we have a lot of upset, repressed, irritated, mentally fucked people, I understand it. But I feel like we're not trying to look at things objectively. We're trying to see it as a flaw of character on the person. But what led to that person having that flaw? What led to that person being underdeveloped? That's what I want people to explore. I don't have the answers to that, because I am not the one living through all of the circumstances that contribute to the decay of a person. But that's what I would like people to become honest about. Just talk about the things that are going on, that are messed up, and that we should mitigate to be able to ensure that our futures can look better. But I feel like we spend more time arguing with each other about whose point is more compelling, when really all of those points are a collection that create the bigger picture. But I feel like we're trying to spend too much of our time competing against whose point is the most valid, when they all add up to the disaster in our communities. There were some more replies, but unfortunately my phone is like tripping. So I'm going to consider this my stopping point. You guys see most of what the discussion was like. I feel like I wasn't able to make it to some of the other discussions, but of course we had that incel show up to the thread, and what he was saying was something about how the court system favoring women so much makes it very difficult to find kids enticing or something like that. And of course, some people were saying, oh, here's the incel. And me personally, I think, hey, again, his point is valid. This is a very, female leaning society. We are a society that caters to women a lot because we are perceived as vulnerable and whatnot. The truth is, we do have privilege as females. And I feel like this society was actually built by men to be able to, I guess, in a sense, impress women or provide women, protect women, whatever it is. But somehow, somewhere, it became looked at as, oh, women were simply treated like we were property. I'm not saying that that isn't true. I'm only a modern person. I only know the experience that I have in my life as a female in the 21st century. I do not know what it was like before we had all of these rights and things. But one thing is for sure, I do feel like the things that we have achieved as women, for some of us, it has gotten a little bit too out of control. It got to our brains too much, like our fumes went up to our brain or whatever it is that it's called, because now I feel like we're looking at all men as inherently enemies, and I think that is wrong. I think that is a behavioral issue that needs to be addressed. If some men have that sentiment that, hey, I am scared that in the event my relationship falls apart, I'm going to lose everything, this is a human being. A man is a human being who's putting effort, tears, sweat, blood into the job, and he's trying to do his best to provide for the family, but then for whatever reason, his wife felt that that wasn't enough and decides to start a divorce. That'll break down any person. And I think that because women are not the ones going out there to fight, provide, work, build up things like be expected on a social level to incur that role, we don't experience that pressure. The moment a woman is put in a vulnerable situation, support reigns on her. And I can tell you that I have been a recipient of that. Occasionally, I have something going on in my personal life, and somehow a man tends to be the person to help, to contribute, to make me feel better. I'm not saying that women are inherently people who are not willing to help. What I'm saying is that men, as the individuals who go out there and build and work and develop things, they are better suited and able to provide. But for some reason, women have problems with that. Women find relying on men nowadays like a negative thing. And I think that that is a wrong mindset to have, because we exist to complement each other. So the things that you are not able to achieve on your own, you should be able to rely on someone else to help provide for you. But I feel like the modern woman is rejecting that idea and saying that she should be responsible, absolutely, and independent from those things. When you decide to detach yourself, that has a cost, that has consequences. And that's why some women nowadays tend to be dying younger, tend to be sicker more often, more chronically so than in years past. And as opposed to objectively asking ourselves what led to that, we just try to say that it's society being harsh on women. No, women's decisions is what's being harsh on women and nothing else. I'm not saying that men are saints and that all of them are perfectly suited and equipped to deal with a life around women. There are some men out there who, unfortunately, for instance, do not know how to handle rejections. What made that man emotionally and mentally incapable of processing such a thing? We need to explore that as well, and many other things that I should definitely create a separate video topic for. But just so you know, there is a consequence to you divorcing yourself from society as it was established. I feel like our ancestors spent enough time testing things out to figure out what style of home management and job management worked for them. If men are bigger, stronger, and better suited for work, then let them do the work, and then let us handle the lighter stuff. Unfortunately, the modern woman is saying everything that a man can do, I can do, and I can do it better. So we're saying, okay, go out there and prove it and make your living. And then women realize that they may not be able to either meet that quota, or if you do, you cannot hold on to that for long. And then you'll start saying that the place that you work at does not support your manifestation and your success. No, that is a you problem. You are the one who is not suited for this job. And as opposed to admitting that, you are saying that those around you are against you and not supporting you. I think that is false, and that's why I cannot support you. In other instances, the way I like to look at it, to simplify it, is the bar is like up here and you want it to be lowered down here for you just because woman. That I disagree with. Just learn to accept that you have limits and that you realistically cannot succeed everywhere. Be okay with that, accept it, make peace with it, and be over. So yeah, you guys, that's pretty much it from me. This was a very interesting thread and topic. I guess I could have made a video in which I read the entire thread, but I feel like I delivered enough of the point. Me personally, in case it wasn't clear, I do not think that children owe you anything. I do not think that you are owed care in your old age by children. I think that is unfair because you, as a parent, you had your season to be able to build your home. I could ask my parents, were you taking care of old people when you were in your 20s, 30s, 40s? They are going to say no. So why would you expect for me, because you had me at an older age, why would you rely on me to take care of you when this is my season, my 20s and 30s and 40s, to be working on the stuff that you had granted to you? you are a human being. I'm not saying that, okay, you got old, you are a waste. Like, nothing like that. Please do not believe that's what I'm saying. What I'm saying is that this is our time, and once this time is over, we're not getting it back. But you're asking for us to sacrifice that because you did not make plans for your future as an aging person. Whether it was your fault or not, that we're going to have to explore differently. Some people genuinely did not have opportunities to build up for their old age. You never know the circumstances of people. But if you are divorced, or if your spouse died, or if you decided to not have a career that left you with a lot of money, then see what I mean? That is the part that I want people to discuss more. And that's why I leave comments like that. I want to hear people talking. And then maybe people would become aware of themselves, of how detached from reality they may be under some circumstances. All right, guys, this is truly it from me now. Thank you so much for tuning in. Please let me know your thoughts, because this is actually something that's eventually going to affect me. And of course, anybody who is watching this, maybe you're being affected by this already, or maybe you dread when this time comes. So let's allow this spot to be the safe place where we can exchange ideas and perhaps prepare each other for those moments in life. Or maybe some of you have gone through this already and you may have shared my vision, but you actually changed it, or you went through it and you were able to stay firm to your decision of, sorry, mom and dad, but I cannot be there for you and this is why. Or you sacrificed yourself for your parents and then life passed you by and you were not able to build yourself, build your own life. All right, guys, I'll see you soon. Thanks for watching.